Hey y'all. Hey y'all. Thank y'all so much for joining us. Tonight is day 2 of the Curvy Fox virtual cruise. We are live on YouTube and Facebook right now. If you are joining from Instagram, we are not live on Instagram right now. We are on YouTube and Facebook. So make sure you click the link in our bio for either the Facebook Live or the YouTube Live. I am Christina Howe. I am the founder and creative director of Curvy Fox. Curvy Fox is a luxury swimwear line to empower women to reclaim their confidence and live unapologetically. So tonight, like I said, we are day 2 of the virtual cruise. The virtual cruise is just our way to be able to give back to our supporters and create some fun digital events so that way we can kind of pass the time a little bit faster during quarantine. So tonight, I am super excited. We are talking about plus size dating, like dating while plus size. As a single plus size woman, I've been single for a while, so I feel like I've kind of been on different types of dates. I've dated my type. I've tried dating outside of my type, but I think it's going to be really fun to have a conversation, but not just getting my female perspective, but also another plus size woman's perspective and a male perspective from someone who dates plus size women. So we're going to kind of talk about some of the stereotypes. We're going to talk about forward on what we as plus size women can do to level the playing field because I think we've accepted a lot of things for far too long and it's time to kind of take back our power and enjoy dating again. I don't know about you guys, but I don't enjoy dating anymore. So I actually don't date because I don't enjoy dating. So we're going to have 2 guests tonight. We're going to have Simone Mariposa, who is a plus size influencer, is one of my personal favorite plus size influencers. We also are going to have Haize. He's a photographer and a podcast host. So I'm really excited to have them. Like I said, we have another plus size female perspective, and then we have the male perspective from someone who dates plus size women. We are on YouTube and Facebook Live tonight. So we're going to bring in Simone and Haize. And make sure y'all check in. Let me know, where are you tuning in from? Are you single? Are you dating? What has worked for you? Help another Curvy Fox out and let us know like what's worked for you. Did you try online dating? Do you go out to bars? Like, what is your dating life right now? If you're married, where did you meet your husband? What's your love story? Let us know in the comments. We want to know what's going on with you guys. And if you have questions or if you have a topic that you want to bring up, drop that in the comments too. Hey y'all.
Hello.
Hey. So we have
What's going on?
Simone and we have Haize. So I kind of did a pre-introduction for you guys, but I want to allow both of you to introduce yourself. You know what, honey? We gotta let the girls do what they gonna do because it's life.
That wasn't gonna be no problem. That wasn't gonna be no problem. Don't worry. Shoot. We ain't
Like
worried about that.
it's life. But I'm
That's
gonna
part
allow
of
y'all to
life,
introduce
okay?
yourself. And so we're gonna start with Simone. Simone, can you give us an introduction to who is the influencer? Simone, I don't want to say plus size influencer because you are an influencer, period. So we're gonna say influencer Simone.
Well, thank you for that. My name is Simone Mariposa. I have been influencing for about 5 years now. I'm passionate about body positivity, about inspiring women, people themselves to be confident about themselves. I'm an actor. I be singing sometimes, and I love to spark discussions so that people can learn about different perspectives in people's lives.
That's awesome. I follow you on my personal page as well as the Curvy Fox page, and I know some of your posts I have definitely screenshot and sent it in a group text and be like, I was just feeling this way. So I definitely feel like you are on the mark with sparking conversations, and that's why we felt like you would be really good for this conversation. Because some of your posts I've been like, you know what, that it definitely explains why I feel what I feel right now. So I'm with you on that one. Haize, can we you give us an introduction, excuse me, to your brand and who you are as a podcast host?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Haize, aka CEO Haize. I am the host of the Awaken Soul podcast and owner of the Breaks Media. And kind of what my podcast is all about, my solo podcast is all about pushing forward conversations that we're typically hesitant to have in our culture, and also offering difference of opinion. So, like what I like to do most on my podcast is I like to put together people who necessarily don't have the same viewpoint, so that people can understand that you can understand someone's perspective without necessarily agreeing with them. Understanding and agreeing are two different things. So that's really what I try to push forward in my platform. And then when I created my media company, I really wanted it to be representative of everything that's part of Black culture, not just one thing. I think that the mainstream media tries to filter us into just a monolithic thought, and I wanted to display all aspects of Black culture with the Black media. So you'll find podcasts that are about mental health, that are about fashion, that are about TV, news, sports, everything. So we really want to be you to come to the Breaks Media and just get a slice of everything that's part of our culture.
Oh, that's awesome. That's dope. I think, that's important to be able to have, especially this day and age, have conversations that we can disagree, but we can still be civil and we don't have to be
Absolutely.
disrespectful. And I think we definitely saw that yesterday on the live with myself and Goddess Detox. When we touched on spirituality, me being a believer in Jesus Christ and her believing in different creators, and still seeing like we have some similarities and we can still have some practices that are the same that doesn't go against what we believe in. So I definitely feel like we need to push that more, because I feel like the generation now doesn't know how to communicate. So can we bring back communication? you know
That is a fact.
Facts. You said that.
Yeah. So I spoke a little bit yesterday. We spoke with Goddess Detox on self love, and so tonight I really want to dive into how can we bring self love into dating, because I feel like there's no middle ground when it comes to dating, and I can only speak as a plus size woman because I've been plus size my entire life. Um, and to those of you that are uncomfortable with the word fat, I use fat all the time because I am fat, so it doesn't bother me. I accept where I am,
Amen.
and I'm sorry if that makes you uncomfortable, but I accept where I am. So, as a fat woman, I wanted to have a conversation around dating and some of the stereotypes and the fact that, there's a lot of men who would hook up with a fat woman or a plus size woman, but wouldn't necessarily be in a genuine relationship, committed relationship with a plus size woman, and kind of understanding what the difference is and knowing what you're walking into, but also getting a male perspective on from someone who dates plus size women. So I actually want to start there with Haize. What do you consider a plus size woman?
I mean, that's a difficult question because the spectrum is so wide on what people consider plus size and what they don't. So I really think that it's more of a it's how you feel about yourself more so than what anyone else can categorize you as, because there are some
Right.
people who think that they're plus size, and we'll look at them and be like, you're like 160, there's no way you're plus size. But so it's really
Right.
it's really what you think and kind of what you categorize yourself as, because everyone has a different view on what's plus size and what's not.
I agree. I agree. I think when having a conversation with someone else, when they think of plus size, they think of Ashley Graham, but they don't think of Lizzo as plus size. They think of her as fat. But in reality, they're both plus size. Like one is just shaped a little bit differently. So, Mom, what would you consider plus size?
For me, my definition is pretty cut and dry. It's someone who's bigger than a size 14. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, I agree. Because as a brand, we consider ourselves a plus size brand. Even though we go down to a size six, our target market is 14 to 24. So yes, we have
Mm,
options for a small amount of options for a size six. Because to me, a curvy fox can still be, you can be curvy and be a size six. But our focus is plus size women, so that is anyone over the size 14. So I did want to, I think we had some audience questions that Ashley pulled together. And for those of you who don't know from our Instagram Live, Ashley is one of our amazing Curvy Fox team members. And so she had a question on why is it important to discuss plus size dating? And I'll let either one of you guys take that one.
I think it's important to discuss plus size dating simply because we don't have the same experiences as straight size people. Um, I think it would be simple to say like, oh yeah, dating is bad for all of us, and granted it is, especially in this day and age.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's tough to find somebody who genuinely cares about you, and finds value in you beyond your physique. But to take it a step further, when you don't have a conventional body type,
Mm-hmm.
it's likely for people to treat you differently because of that. So we need to have this discussion so that women like me, women like us, are heard and understood, and also to kind of to open up the conversation so that people can provide their own input and also take away things so that when they do go out into the world, they might treat plus size women differently, or they might take notice of it and speak up if they do experience an injustice happening.
Right. I agree. I think well, Hayes, do you have an answer? Because I
Yeah, I
think
think it's
we really want to know the male perspective too. Because as plus size, when we talk to our girlfriends all the time, but a lot of us may not be fortunate to have male friends to talk to about dating. So let's get your perspective.
I think it's important for representation, if nothing else. And I think a lot of times people will think, well, I'm the only one who experiences this, or I'm the only one who's going through this. So just talking about it openly lets other people know, like, no, you're not the only one, or this is what I've done to overcome that obstacle, or this is how I worked through it. This is how I dealt with rejection, which is a lot that we don't talk about in general. We always want to talk about the positive side of dating, but not really the negatives or the downsides, or how we dealt with the heartbreak or rejection. So I think in that aspect, it's very important to talk about.
Yeah, I think rejection is important whether you plus size or, straight size because everybody talks about the DMs where your shot went through, but nobody
Mhm.
talks about when, you hit an air ball shooting your shot. So, I think that's important. And I think there's a lot of stigmas around plus size dating. Like one that I know or I've heard of is men will date plus size women because they feel like they're sugar mamas.
Mm.
She's doing well in her career. She have all this money and she wants to spoil her man, which may be the case for some women, but why would that be the only reason why you would want to date, a plus size woman? So, I think what are some of the stereotypes that you guys have heard that have kind of like made you take a step back or kind of annoyed you when you seem like who would think like that?
I guess I'll take that one first. I think for me, just being honest with like what you'll hear other men talk about, like there's the concept that plus size women are great as like fuck buddies, or like to have as a on the side thing, and not really be public about people who date plus size women. And that is like, I think when people feel like that, and when people do that and display that, it's like, all right, how uncomfortable are you really in yourself to where you're not even comfortable having your choice to date or to deal with the plus size woman
Right.
be in the public. Like that says more about you than it does about the woman. But of course it does cause the woman a level of stress and everything else, because you're stuck wondering, oh, why won't he take me out? Why will he only come over my house late at night? Why are we, it seems like we're hiding. And that's something that most men won't admit, like, hey, I'm worried about the public conception. I love how I love us hanging out. I love spending time with you, XYZ, but I'm worried about how if we go out, people are going to look at you or look at me. And that's something that
Right.
this was important for to have, like the platform that you're having now, and this is a discussion we're going to have, because people just don't want to admit it, or they think that they're the only ones who feel that way. And it's like, nah, bro, you gotta grow up.
Yeah, I agree. That's a big thing. And I think women in general, we always take it as our fault, like we're doing something wrong. And I think we have to do a better job of holding the men that we date accountable for their actions and stop feeling like we need to do something to get them to act a certain way when they're grown just like we're grown.
Hmm.
Like why would
Hmm.
I have to do something different for another grown man to do what he should be doing? So I'll throw it to Simone. Any thoughts on that?
Repeat the question one more time. I'm sorry, my camera went crazy just now,
Oh
and
no,
I'm
you're
back,
fine.
and
We
I'm here.
weren't. No, you're good. It wasn't necessarily a question, just kind of like your feedback on like men who think plus size women are good for in the bed, but maybe not going out to a date or bowling or things like that. They're ashamed of the public perception of them being with a bigger woman.
Yeah, I definitely think that speaks to insecurity on the man's part, just because if you are attracted to someone and you value them, it wouldn't necessarily matter what anyone else thought. Um,
Right.
so, I mean, I've experienced that a lot. There's been a lot of times where like people have hit my DMs and like, I never thought I would be into a big girl till I met you, but then on the timeline they might not even, recognize my existence. So I think it once again it just speaks to that person's character. I don't take it personally because I know my value beyond my physicality. So if somebody were to try that with me, I mean, I'm quick to cuss people out, to be honest. Like I'm very adamant about like, speaking my mind and letting people know like, okay, this is not okay. So yeah, it's problematic, but I don't let it personally affect me.
Yeah, I think you had a post, maybe it was like 2 months ago at this time, but it was dating me is not settling because I'm a full package. Like
Hmm.
that was everything to me, and I think more women should see that. And look, when we get up in the morning, I'm a big believer in speaking over my day and just saying that in that moment, like I don't have to settle for anything, whether it's a man, a job, or anything. I don't have to settle because I know I'm a
Hmm.
full package. What kind of brought you to the point of wanting to verbalize that publicly?
Um, well, I guess my what I like to do is speak from experience. I
Hmm.
didn't get to this place magically in one day. I have had to live through things. I've had to learn lessons for me to be able to develop this mindset. So I want people to be able to have that journey and get to that point too. Granted, it does take time, but I would, because I've gotten these little pieces and nuggets of wisdom through my experiences, I hope that
Hmm.
these help to expedite the expedite the process more for others, so that they don't have to go through certain things. And granted, some things do build character, but I think it does save you a lot of pain and sadness when you do have someone who is a representation for you, who's like, here, this is something that I've learned. The earlier you implement this, the better. That's what I feel like my place is. And you own. I think people find that relatable too. Like they'll see someone like me who
Right.
has a bigger following, and I'm a plus size woman. I've gone through things. They can say like, okay, if she's gone through it, means what I'm going through isn't so strange. So from there, I can be
Right.
empowered, and I can feel like there's someone who's like me, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. Hayes, I almost called you CJ. Hayes, do you have any thoughts on the post that she did about not settling and just because you're a plus size woman, you don't have to settle, you're a full package?
I 110% agree with that. You often hear like how many women feel like they like because someone shows them attention that they kind of have to just settle, and they may be settling for the attention of someone who just is willing to publicly date them, and the other person isn't feeding into them mentally, spiritually, or anything else. They don't have offer to the table. They're just finally happy to have someone who kind of shows them off to a way. And it's like, no, you don't have to settle for anything. All your needs need to be met. There's no point in settling because you're just really doing yourself harm in the long run, and them also. So like, there's no point in settling. That was a powerful post, and I'm sad, mad I missed it. So that was powerful. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I have it saved in my phone actually. Like it was one of those that I screenshot. Like, hey girl, I don't know what you're going through, but remember this post, you know, because I think it's a lot to it. And I think one thing I always try to tell people is just because I'm plus size don't mean I have to date a plus size man. You know, like that's not my type. You know, my type is tall, you know, skinny, borderline stocky, you know, so that's my type. And I'm allowed to have my type. And my type is allowed to date me. Like, I shouldn't put myself in a box like, oh, I'm this size, so I need to only look for this type of man. No, I'm looking for what I feel brings value to my life. And I think even getting more women to open themselves up to think about that, like, are you settling in the type of man that you allow yourself to date? You know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'll let you go with that one, Simone. No, you're good.
Okay, yeah. So I think it's hard because, yes, like we deserve to date whoever we want to date, and I'm not saying that, but I think there is a little bit of, a lot of plus size women have felt like they have to date someone of a specific type just to prove the public wrong. I've experienced a lot of women saying that, kind of like, yeah, I'm fat, but I also date like a football player type of dude, and it's like, that's dope, but like, why are you what are you trying to prove, and who are you trying to prove it to?
Right.
Granted, like everyone has their preference, and I'm not saying that you can't like who you want to like, but if you are basing who you like or publicizing who you like to, I guess, let the public know that certain people are attracted to you, I feel like that puts a little bit too much focus on what other people think. You know, if you're gonna date a person, date them and just keep it how it is. You know, it doesn't have to be a entire spectacle. And I find that happens a lot.
Yeah, I think when we were getting ready for the second virtual cruise, which we're doing now, I saw a tweet from a plus size influencer, and it kind of struck a chord because she was like basically saying she's not going to feed into this plus size dating or dating while plus size thing because she can date any type of man, and any type of man wants her. She can have any type of man she wants, basically. And I felt like it did a disservice to not only me as a plus size brand, but as a plus size consumer, because I have been out here dating, and yes, I can date any type of man, but to say that there's not stereotypes and fetishes going on, and people only want to see what it's like to be with a plus size woman, but not wanting to have a genuine relationship, I think that's unfair to the women who are out here going through emotional abuse, you know, not trying to figure out where they went wrong when it comes to dating. And it looks like you may have seen that post before that I'm talking about.
Sure did. And that's my girl. She's a dope person, and I love her. I've gotten to know her. But I understand what you're saying, and I agree, just because it does do a disservice, and it kind of gaslights a lot of people's experiences. Because granted, like I said granted so many times, she did. That has been that has been the experience, her experience, but I would say that the majority of plus size women have not had that experience at all, and I can attest to that. You can attest to that. So I get what you mean. I agree.
Yeah, and so I was like, okay, we definitely need to have this conversation. So that's why we're here tonight. I was like, yeah, we need to have a bigger conversation about this. So I actually wanted to kind of just throw it to you guys, and because I know everybody has their own thoughts as far as dating and things like that. So I'm gonna go one by one. I'm gonna start with you, Haize, and kind of why you felt like this conversation was important and some things that you want to make sure we hit on tonight.
I think it's important just because not many people have this conversation openly, and especially not with like a man and woman's perspective. So I think that it's important just in that alone. But I also think it's important just because people need to see that we are trying, there are some of us that are trying to break the stigmas, trying to break those mental chains, because that's really all it is. It's all goes back to somebody at some point was embarrassed by someone or something, and it's just trickled down, and that shame has followed through the generation. So the only way to break that
Hmm.
is to publicly break it and publicly have those conversations. So that's why it's important.
I agree. I agree. And are there any topics that or any things that you want to hit on? Make sure we talk about tonight.
I definitely want to talk more about the stigma for both the men and women's side, but I also want to talk about the fact of standing up for yourself. And that's something that Simone already touched on, definitely, but I kind of want to break it down deeper if we can and have the time, because I think it's important to for people to hear that, look, you don't have to settle for anything. And if somebody is making you feel any less than you are, just tell them to go. Like
Hmm.
you don't need to expound your energy on it.
Yeah, I agree. And so, Simone, I'll come back to you with the same two questions. And CJ, I'll let you go ahead and kick us off into that. Because I think that is important,
Hmm.
because somebody could be watching right now. They're stuck in quarantine with somebody who does not value them. And
Hmm.
when quarantine is over, they should be over, So I think that's really important.
Yeah, for sure. I think like, and we all go through it. Like we all go through
Right.
times where we're just happy to have something to call our own, right? And so we hold on to that because in our minds that's ours. We're going to hold on to it. But at the same time, like I kind of touched on before, if it's not feeding you more than just surface level, what is it really bringing into you? Like, yeah, some people just settle to have something to call theirs just so they can call it theirs, and it's like it's not worth that. Like it's not worth it. At the end of the day, if you're made to feel less than the amazing person you are, if you feel that you're looked at as an object rather than a person, like we forget to serve the person in front of us. People will fetishize all day long, and at the end of the day, that's all you are to them is a fetish, and that's an issue, and
Mhm.
that's happening more and more and
Hmm.
more.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of our followers, she has a shirt that says, "I'm fat, I'm not your fetish,"
Hmm.
which I still need my shirt, But I think just even verbalizing, like, I'm not your fetish. I'm not something to be played with. I'm not something, I'm a person. I have emotions. I'm not a thing to begin with. I'm a person. I'm a human being. So I think it's important that we begin to like really speak into who we are and understand who we are and our worth and what we bring to the table. And a lot of things I tell people all the time, write down what you're bringing to the table and write down what they're bringing to the table. And if it's not equaling up, and if you're not getting what you need to get from the relationship, it's time to go.
That is
There's
a
no
fact.
need to keep crying about it. We don't have to keep coming to the table about it. We gotta go. We do.
And I think often too people are afraid to just go because they're afraid of, all right, what if it looks like I'm abandoning them? What if it looks like XYZ? But at the end of the day, you should have no qualms. If it's not serving you, go. Go. Like, and we stay to prove a point, right? We stay and deal with things just to prove that we made it through it. And it's like, and I said this before too, it's like sometimes men will judge a woman's love off them based off how much crap they're willing to put up with, and it's like, why do we have to do that? Why is our love judged off how much crap we put up with? But I'm sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent. Go ahead.
No, you're good. You good. You can keep going because, like I said, that's what the conversation is about.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, and it's just like at the end of the day, it's when you take a look at it, and you should, and I fully believe that people nowadays, you should take an evaluation. You should sit down 6 months in, a year and a half in, 2 years in, and take a look and really weigh. All right, what's changed? What's serving me? How am I serving them? And if it's not adding up, then it's not worth your time.
Right. I agree. And I think that goes beyond relationships. I think that's
Yeah.
jobs. I think that's like hobbies, anything like that. We should be
Hmm.
taking personally I do it at the end of the month. Like what did I do this month? What took up the most time?
Yeah.
And how can I reclaim my time? What
Absolutely.
do I need to cut off? So I do agree that we have to begin to do that more. And then the other thing that you touched on was about just not being able to just walk away and kind of being fearful of the unknown. Like I can talk to that myself, because you always, I think as women, we're always thinking about other people, and we feel selfish when we feel like I'm actually going to think about myself in this moment. But I think once
Mm-hmm.
it clicks for us that, is this person thinking about me as much as I'm thinking about them, as much as I'm putting them before myself? Are they putting me before themselves? Then it becomes an easier choice to walk away from the situation. And it goes back to that self love. Like, you have to love yourself enough to say, you know what, this a wrap.
Yeah.
This a wrap.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think
So
it's important to teach that um within relationships too. Like a lot of people, we talk about like, yeah, love yourself with your body, love yourself with your clothes, be confident who you are, but also that confidence transfers to
yeah,
relationships. Like people will always say like, you can't love anyone until you love yourself. And I think a lot of people get that mixed up because they assume that you're unlovable if you don't love yourself. But more so, you're gonna question the validity of a relationship when you aren't secure in who you are. So
right.
you have to be able to understand your worth and your value and see that, okay, this person is with me for a reason because I'm dope, and it's
Hmm.
okay for you to recognize that, and you can really respect and honor the relationship and the commitment for what it is and not continue to question it.
I agree. And I believe in asking the questions up front. I believe setting expectations on the first date. Like, what are you looking for out of this? Or, I need to know so I don't create these beliefs in my head that we're going this way and you're really trying to go this way. I think more women
Hmm.
have to be okay with asking questions. I've heard so many women say, "Oh, I didn't want to ask that because I didn't want to ruin the day." You getting an understanding, how can that ruin the date?
Right.
That's
And
that's
if
a
it
grown conversation.
right, and if it ruins the date, that speaks to that man's character, not yours.
Yes.
You have to ask those nitty-gritty
Yeah.
questions so that, like you said, you can avoid a lot of turmoil and strife if you just are straight up with it off top. Because some people will like bring that little fetishy side like later in the date, but they're trying to put on a
Yeah.
good front so that they get to that point. But instead be like, so what are we looking for? I mean, you don't have to ask it like, what's up? But you could at least be like, okay, let's talk about this so that I know to make the proper decision going forward.
Right. And I think one of the easier ways is just asking them, what are some of your short-term goals? Like, if short-term right now, he's trying to focus on his career and he's trying to focus on, his bag and all these other things, he probably not focused on a committed relationship right now. He's probably just looking for companionship or a hookup or whatever. But those are leading questions to get you to where you're trying to go. Instead of just coming out saying, so what is it that you're looking for? Like, every man gonna be like, uh, we really gonna go here right now?
But on top of that,
We have
like
appetizer first.
you have to honor the fact that men be telling the truth. You ask the question, you want to keep it
Yes,
real. And a lot of women kind of like they'll read between the lines at times. But if you ask a man and he's honest, he's gonna be honest for the most part.
right. Even if he doesn't come out and say, I just want to hook up, in his words and in his
Right.
conversation, you're going to know he's just
Hmm.
looking to hook up. So that's why I say we have to ask the questions and stop creating these false illusions in our head about where these situations
Hmm.
are going, and just be honest. But Hayes, can you speak on that?
Okay, so I'm going to attack it from both sides, right? Because I want to be completely fair to the men and women. So for the men, I
Okay.
will say that we do have to stop being afraid of the questions that are asked, and it's okay also to say,
Mm.
you know what, I haven't thought about that yet, but now that you've asked me, let me take some time to think of it. Let's circle back in 30 minutes. I don't want to completely derail our conversation. So while I'm thinking about this, let's talk about XYZ as well, and then make sure you're intentional about then circling back and saying, you know what, remember that question you asked me earlier on? I got the answer for you now. Let's talk about it. And I think being intentional in that and being honest with saying, all right, well, I hadn't really thought about that yet. Let me take some time to think about it, because I think sometimes we can be so quick to want our questions answered that we'll just give the other person like, all right, well, give me the answer. What do you mean you don't know? And
Right.
it's like, all right, well, we just sit around and now it's awkward. Now you've put that person on the defense
That's true.
because they're just taking they're like you're just sitting there looking like, all right, I'm waiting for my question to be answered. So let the conversation
Right.
happen naturally. Like, make sure if you want to go in and
That's
you have
real.
things that are important for you to know, to say, look, I'm not expecting you to have this now if you don't have it, but this is important enough to me that hopefully by the end of this day, let's talk about it. Or if you need till tomorrow, then be open to it on both sides. But what I'll also say is that for the women, discernment is important, especially nowadays, because
Yeah.
like everyone like
Facts.
you will see so many people say, "Oh well, this MF or did XYZ," and it's like, all right, but you ignored the signs just because you wanted someone. You ignored the signs that were right in front of you. So discernment is
Yeah.
important for the women as well. And I just wanted to point that out
Mm-hmm.
too, because while I think a lot of these conversations go to the onus of the man, which is fair because we do have that, but we also are women. We you guys need to have discernment, because not only if you learn to develop that, you will learn who's out for fetishizing versus who's really into you, but you'll also learn to
So
get
true.
out of certain situations that you don't feel safe in. So I think discernment is a lot of things, a lot of what I want to hope that our sisters can develop as well.
Mm.
Yeah, I agree, Simone. I'm gonna let you
Yeah.
take that one. I'm gonna follow up after you.
No, I appreciate you for saying that because that is so true. I think the conversation of dating can get a little heated because a lot of women can't really process the feedback that we're getting,
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
it's easy to be like, well, men, you know what I'm saying? But the truth is a lot of us are blind to things because we want to make the best of a situation because we see
Mhm.
potential, because we're super attracted to that person. We're going to ignore those red flags,
Yeah.
so because people ask me a lot, like, how can you tell if a guy's into you just because he's attracted to you or if he's fetishizing you? And I just say, like, you have to feel the vibe. You have to pay
Mhm.
attention to the type of conversation, what he brings up. To me, the first thing that I notice if a guy's hitting on me is if he says something about my body off top. Then I'm
Mm.
like, okay,
Mhm.
this is not the kind of guy that I'm looking for. If
Yeah.
he's gonna fetishize me. But a lot of women, because, and truth be told, it's because a lot of plus size women do lack that confidence, that when someone thinks
Mhm.
positively of their body, they see that as like a pro. So they skip over what exactly it could mean underneath, and they go with the fact that someone's attracted to them, you know.
Right.
But I try to, let women know that, like, if he's coming to you like, oh, I love me a big girl, he doesn't really care about you. He cares about the
Mhm.
satisfaction that your body can give him. So you have to pay attention to those telltale signs.
Yeah, I agree. One of my biggest turnoffs is when a guy first approached me and is like, "Hey, sexy."
Oh,
There's so many adjectives that you could use. Why sexy?
yeah,
Like,
so gross,
I
so
no
gross.
blocked. I'm not interested. It's not gonna happen. So I agree. I think it's even, and some women are like, I've had many conversations about this with men and women about how maybe that's being a little too picky. But I've tested it. I've been like, okay, you know what? Let me see what he's really about. And it's always the same. If that's how they're coming to the table, like, hey, sexy, that's what he's about. He wants
Yep.
sex. He's into this is a fetish for him. He's trying to hook up, and that's not and that may not be where I am, and I'm blocked. Goodbye. Let's keep it moving. There's
Mm-hmm.
no, and I think more women have to take back that power. Like, if it puts you off, if you feel any type of way, like negatively, keep it moving. Don't say, well, maybe I
Mm-hmm.
was overreacting or maybe I'm being, no, keep it moving. Like your
Mm-hmm.
body tells you how it feels in that moment. And you have to be, like you said, Haize, discern. You have to use your discernment.
Mm-hmm.
How did this make me feel? If it didn't make you feel good, it's not a situation for you. How
Very
it
true.
starts is how it's going to keep going.
Facts.
So I think that was a good. I think this even leads us into our conversation for next week, where we are talking about gender roles. And for me, that is a big part of dating because I'm a traditional person when it comes to dating. Although I have tried non-traditional ways like dating apps and stuff. I'm still very traditional. Like I expect a man to pick me up when we're going on a date. Even if it's the first day, I still want to be picked up. It's still a date. If you're not picking me up, I don't consider it a date. I consider it us hanging out or we're just meeting up somewhere.
Hmm.
So that's my preference in being a traditional dater. But a lot of people are like, no, I can drive myself, which is fine. But I think where do we as women draw back and allow the men in our life to be men? Do y'all have
Well,
any
what is
feedback?
what does it mean for a man to be a man? Because I think that's when it kind of gets a little rocky. because
Mhm.
there are so many stereotypes about what men should be, and a lot of those
Hmm.
stereotypes are problematic in nature, in my point of view. So, what's your definition of a man being a man?
Me personally, I believe a man is a provider and he's a protector at his core. And he's a hunter at his core. He's going to go after what he wants. So I shouldn't have to do anything to lure him in. If he's genuinely interested, he's going to pursue. So I think men are genuinely hunters. There are providers and they're protectors. And when I'm looking for a relationship, I'm looking for somebody who can lead. Do they have to be told what to do, or can they stand up in the storm and be like, okay, this is what we're getting ready to do? And it doesn't always have to come off like I'm telling you what to do, but in a way where it's like, this is my suggestion. This is what I really feel like we should be going right now. We shouldn't be going left. We should be going right. And this is why I think that way. Not a let's go. No, hold on. Let's not do that one. But let's have a conversation on why you're telling us to go right. What are you thinking? What do you see that maybe I don't see? Like, can he really lead and provide and protect a future family? Is what I look for in when dating.
Makes sense.
Can I jump in that?
I was hoping you would.
Yeah,
Okay.
please do.
So
We
so
love
I
that
I
perspective.
I I get everything that you're getting at. So I want to make sure that I tell you I understand that. But this is what I'll say is that sometimes people have to learn to lead you. So if
Mm,
you expect them to come in and automatically jump in and do all these things, that's not always going to happen, because sometimes when,
Hmm.
especially when somebody's really interested, they're taking the time out to learn to lead you. And because leadership is it changes for who you're leading, sometimes
right.
that quality that you look for, which is great, you have to let that build. So over that first
Mm.
3 months you may not see that quality. It's not because they don't have it, but it's because they are legitimately trying to find the way that their leadership style can best get through to you. And so I just wanted to point that out, is that by if you come in and you think that somebody's right off the bat is going to necessarily show the leadership qualities that you're looking for, that's not always going to be the case, because either sometimes people have to or they're still developing into leaders, but also they're really trying to get to learn you and what are your triggers. Like, okay, if they, because leaders can change depending on who they're leading. So for example, me,
Hmm.
I'm a leader, but and I've been in management since I was 19 years old. But for example, like my initial leadership style was, you go over here, you do this, you do that, and I'm going to do this while you're doing that. Then in my next job that I had a
Mm,
leadership role, it was more of a, hey, let me step back, let me see what you do, where your skills lie at, what is going to be best suited, so I can put you in the proper position, so then we can be successful as a team. So I think you have to allow it, and you'll be able to know. This still goes back to the discernment we talked about before. But as
right.
you're looking for someone to come in and be that leader and be that provider, you have to leave room for them to learn how that you guys can mesh, because it's not always going to be
Hmm.
that perfect filling in right off the bat.
It's a great
Yeah,
point.
I agree. I think for me, one of the biggest things, like I said, I'm a conversation person. Like, I like to have tons of conversations around like how you think. And so for me, quarantine is the biggest time to see how a man leads,
Mhm.
because this is may not be what he planned in the beginning of the year. So how did he shift in his own life, in his job and his career, and whatever hobbies he had going on, whatever side hustles he had going on, really paying attention, not necessarily in what he says to me or for me, does for me, but how he leads his own life. That's what I look at when looking to
Mhm.
see, are they a true leader? Because you can't lead me if you can't lead yourself. Does he know how to, does he believe in ownership? Is he just wanting to rent a condo for $5,000 a month for the rest of his life? Or is he looking to buy land? Is he looking to buy a house? That depends. Are we living in Texas? Are we living in Georgia? Because I'm in both places right now. So it's really paying attention to how he handles his day to day life. And
Mhm.
it doesn't all, like you said, it doesn't always go to how he can lead me, because looking at how he leads himself will let me know how he can lead me.
Feel that.
So I
That's
think
fair.
we're getting our time here. We have 8 minutes left. But I feel like we really could keep going because there's so much that we haven't touched on
I feel like
here.
I feel like we're still at the
Um,
surface.
I
you
know,
know, I
but
know. I feel like we almost have to push gender roles back and circle back next week to finish this because I don't know, like we still haven't talked about sliding in the DMs, shooting your shot. As a man, do you find it attractive when a woman shoots her shot? Or do you
Absolutely.
prefer to be the pursuer?
Absolutely. And see, that's the
Oh, see,
thing.
I'm
I
gonna shoot
think,
your shot, girl.
I think people, like, you can still be the pursuer. It just means that you didn't, like, people think that if you are the person who initiates it is necessarily the pursuer. That's not always true. You can still be pursued if you decide to shoot
Mhm.
first. And I think that it opens the door to say, hey, I'm making my intentions clear. Now let me see what you're going to do to pursue. So I think that just like what's the analogy that I can use is that like recently we had like the thing on social media where men were admitting sometimes they like being a little spoon. It's kind of like that too, like
Mhm.
sometimes especially in the world now that we live in, where we know people are shooting their shot all the time, like we like you
Right.
can only imagine what goes on in the DMs. So by being a gentleman, sometimes it's like, you know what, I'm not even going to do that. Like hopefully one day we can start a conversation naturally. Sometimes that you being the one to start off that is just opening the door. Now they're like, okay, yes, now let me show her what I can do. So
See, I've only shot my shot twice in life, and both times I was like, you know what? Nope, this is not for me. This feels really uncomfortable. I don't like this. Let me fall back into my lane. And I do. I always fall back into my lane. But Simone, what do you think?
I do see the value in shooting your shot. Um, I think for me, the thing that stops me is the fact that you never know if someone likes a fat girl or not. And
Hmm.
sometimes you are worried about like coming off a certain way because we know the stereotypes of fat girls is that we're desperate and that we come on strong and that we're eager to please and all these things. So there could be a chance that that person thinks that and then they receive
Hmm.
your gesture completely differently than how you intended it. So that's why I try to refrain from shooting my shot. I mean, I've done it a couple times before. Let me not lie. I've shot my shot a couple times before, and it's been cool. But it's
Uh-huh.
always been like virtual. It's never been in real life. Like I've never been like, oh, I have
Right.
to go talk to this guy across the
Oh no,
way.
I would pass
Um,
out.
I would,
Mm-mm.
and there are some women who do it. And I'm like, wow, the talent. I can't relate. I
Yeah.
could never do that. And even though like I'm a rather outspoken person and I'm bold and I don't mind starting conversations and like being riveting and whatnot, but when it comes to approaching men, I have a different take just because of how I look. It's not going to be as simple for me.
Yeah, because we have to be honest, men are mean. Men can be very mean,
mhm.
and if maybe they aren't into fat women, what that comeback could be could make you want to, pull up. And so I like being on this side of a jail cell. So, I just don't. So,
I don't even think men are mean. I just think men are like, I don't know. I think for women, when someone hits on us and we're not interested, we're taught to be polite just for our own personal safety
Safety.
because we know
yeah,
how it works. Sometimes you
yeah,
might say no and then that's your life, and it's scary and it's not
yeah,
okay. But with men, it's a different story. I think because women are the gatekeepers for a lot of things, we're the people who say yes and no. For sexual
yeah,
interactions, we're the ones who say yes. There's a lot of consent that happens. So there's a bit more room for brutal honesty, or not even brutal honesty, just honesty for you to be like, I'm not interested, but you have a good day, you know?
yeah. Yeah, I agree. Hayes, what do you think?
No, I agree. Especially when she talks about the safety aspect of it, and it like it's different because you guys do have to think about your safety. Whereas men sometimes are just like, well, the most she can do is block me afterwards, right? Um,
Right.
so yeah, I get it from that, and I also get it from the aspect of like how can they respond? It's you don't know. And to that, I would say that if it's like, you can always just start a regular conversation. It doesn't have to jump right into like, hey, I'm feeling you when we going out, like
Yeah,
XYZ. Like if that's something
Right.
that you want to do for the single people, let's make sure that we say that, because some of y'all are sliding in DMs and not single. But for the
that's the
single people, it's
word.
like
Preach.
just start a conversation, I guess. I mean, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
Right. Respond to their story or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Start it that way. But I would be
Yeah.
interested
Yeah.
if you've never shot your shot before and you think that you're gonna shoot your shot after this live, like come back and let us know how did it go for you. Like bring the
Please do.
stories back, please,
Do it.
because
Life is too short not to do it. Do it.
yes, like I'm trying. This is a informative live, so let's learn from what has happened. Well, worked for y'all during quarantine. I want to know, because as like I was saying before, I don't enjoy dating anymore. I feel like it's a whole nother job to date now, and
Yeah.
because I feel like nobody is true in their intentions and what they're trying to do. And I have a full-time job. So, I don't want to have another one with dating. So, I actually don't date right now, but with quarantine, that could change. So I'm interested to hear what some stories that come back from some of the people that are watching the live. So I know we're kind of wrapping up here. Any one more topic that you guys wanted to talk about tonight that we make sure we hit on? Either one of
Um,
you
I,
guys.
I personally would love to know like the male perspective on fat fetishes because I talk about it a lot, and
Mhm.
a lot of the feedback I've gotten from men is usually the men who have a fetish and they don't know it or are completely sexualizing towards fat women. So I just want to know like what your experience has been, Hayes, with like women who are a little wary about being fetishized and how you've been able to navigate that.
I think your genuineness shows through just your conversation, and like something that was touched on earlier is like if sex comes up in like the first couple of conversations, then then more than likely it's a fetish. I think somebody will show you if their intention is to get to know you for you, because it won't even come up. Like it won't be like, oh yeah, I've dated six big girls. Like why does that coming up? If I'm getting to know you for you, then it shouldn't even come up, right? Because at the end of the day,
Right.
I'm seeing you. I'm not seeing you for your size.
Right.
I'm not seeing you for XYZ. So I think um, people people will, if you let them talk enough, people will show you their intention. And that's why it is important. We
Hmm.
talked about earlier, like asking those questions. That's why I'm big
Yes.
on saying no, let them ask their questions, because how people answer, and even body language. But it's not always about the words. People need to learn people's body language, and like where their eyes
Yes.
go when they're talking to you. Are they looking at you in your face? Or are they looking somewhere else? And if they are, then you're being fetishized, I think. Because if the conversation is captivating, we're sitting there exchanging conversation back and forth. You're asking your questions, I'm asking mine. XYZ, where it's naturally going. I'm looking at you. I'm not looking at like, oh, those pants are tight. Oh, you wear shorts like that all the time, or looking at your boobs. Like it, you have to. It's conversation. What's the saying? Like only like 30% of conversation is verbal, or something like, well, however that saying goes. And that's
Hmm.
Yeah.
really, it's really true. Body language, where their eyes are going. Are they paying attention when you talk? Like when you're talking and giving your stuff, are they really looking at you in your eye and paying attention to what you say? Or are they kind of just looking off until they can get into what they want to talk about again? All those things will
Hmm.
tell you where someone's mind is and what they're really in it for, I think.
I agree.
Yeah,
I
great
agree. That
point.
was good. Do you have a follow-up question to that one?
No, not exactly. I just like to have these conversations just because, um, first things first, I like to remind women that like there are men out there who don't fetishize us, and I
Mm-hmm.
think when I do bring this up, people assume that I'm saying that that's non-existent, and I
Hmm.
really think that's what's happening is that they're realizing that their own behavior is the behavior that I'm describing. Therefore, they'd
Right.
much rather gaslight me and be like, "No, that people, regular men are out here." You know what I'm saying? And it's like the truth is, you're the man that I'm describing, and you
Right.
haven't been able to admit
Yeah.
that or come to terms with that. So you'd rather make me seem like the problem. So
Right.
yeah, and not even the fact that like men out here are who will treat fat women well, but more so just there are men out here who have these discussions and are making it a point to bring that awareness to other men because that doesn't happen a lot either.
Yeah. Men
Yeah,
don't
I
hold
agree.
men accountable, right? And it's an issue. And I think
Um,
that
Hmm.
like we are so often like we cheer them on, or like we don't want to be combative, or we don't want to be the guy who's like, oh, you capping for women. Like we don't want to do that. So I mean, well, a lot of us don't want to come off like that, so we don't hold each other accountable. We just let it go. We see the toxic behavior and we're like, some girl will get him at some point. But I think it's important for men to hold men accountable, to sit there and call it out like, bruh, you are really being a dick right now. Like, and I think it's in like, I have two friends that I actually only met through podcasts, and one's Dan, one's BJ, and we hold each other accountable to a T. When I mean, like, if we say something that's not PC, or that we say something that's like could come off dickish, we're like, hey, bro, you were wrong for that. I love you. I'm telling you this because I love you, but you are wrong for what you said. And I think that it's important to have a couple of brothers around you who will hold you accountable, who will call you out the carpet, and us not to say, oh, bro, you being sensitive right now. Like, no, you are being wrong. So I think that's important.
Right.
I hate that whole thing of like,
I don't
you're
even have
being
no words
sensitive.
right now.
Mm-mm.
That was good. I think that's a whole nother conversation in itself, because there are so
Right.
many things that I think Black women, and I'm just gonna say Black women because I'm a Black woman, so I can only speak from my life. So anyone
That's
not
okay.
Black, I'm not trying to be offensive, I promise. But I think as a Black woman who always tries to hold the Black men in her life accountable, it would be a lot easier if we all held each other accountable.
Mm-hmm.
Because we would be able to communicate better, and we would be able to build a stronger foundation in our families that we create if we just hold each other accountable. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
have a friend who out here, if y'all go to the grocery store and they stealing, you're not gonna sit there and be like, "Oh, okay, you can steal." No, what are you doing? I don't get down like that. So why can't you not let them steal, but you can let them get out here and be offensive to what we're trying to build in our communities? And I think it's
Mm-hmm.
really, if we just look at it as one community versus plus size versus straight size, and men versus women, we're all looking to at some point for companionship and love if we're trying to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
I think whatever it is at the root of it, it's companionship or love. And so we have to find a better way to do that. And I think more conversations like this are definitely necessary. I'm definitely willing to come back to the table and have a deeper conversation, because, like you said, Haize, I feel like we still on the surface. There's so
Right.
many
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
that we didn't talk about, like the fact that people say, "Oh, you're pretty for a big girl," and men or women will say that, and it's like, well, no, why can't I just be pretty? Why do I have to be pretty for a big
Right.
girl? And I think, Simone,
Yeah.
you talk about that on your platform a lot.
Yeah. I I feel like hopefully I've taught the people that follow me that like that's never going to be a compliment. Um, so it doesn't come up as much. I do get the whole like you have a beautiful face thing, and I'm like, okay, cool, I guess. I
Hmm.
know, like I said, I'm a full package. Like, don't separate me based on what you find acceptable and what you find, attractive and whatnot. Um, and I don't know. It kind of like once again, it takes people being held accountable for what they're saying, which is why there are times where I might be like, whatever, I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm gonna let it go if someone says something ignorant. But there are times where I will go out of my way to say something just because, not because of the fact that I'm being sensitive, because I hate when people say that, like when you're responding,
Hmm.
you can, why do you care so much? It's like,
Mm.
it's not that I care so much, it's more so that I'm responding to something that you said that's extremely personal, like you're talking about
Right.
me and my being. So of course I'm going to be like, hello. So,
Yeah.
I take those opportunities to say something. I try to encourage or educate people on why what they're saying is incorrect. There are some people who will take and be like, "Dang, I never thought about it." There's some people who just are ignorant for ignorance sake. But
Hmm.
I think it's important to say things, call these things out, and let people know, like, okay, I get what you were saying, but that wasn't cute, and here's why. And hopefully they
Right.
take that as a learning opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have to do that more. I hate when you stand up for yourself in any aspect, that it's taken as you're being sensitive or you're being
Hmm.
aggressive, and But I think more people, the more you stand up for yourself, the more comfortable you'll be with that's not going to bother you that somebody's saying you're being sensitive. No, you're being rude and I'm checking you on it.
Yep.
So I think we're
Exactly.
going to wrap up here soon. So any last takeaways we'll start with Haize, from the conversation and things you want to make sure we bring to the table going
I
forward.
think I think the thing that if no one else leaves with anything here, I want us as men and women to stop measuring pain, right? To stop saying to arguing about who has it worse and hear the other out, because there's a message in what we're
Hmm.
saying. Regardless if you feel
Mhm.
like you've been hurt worse or not, that doesn't take away from the other side's hurt. And I think that if we stop trying to measure pain and more so realize, all right, this is what men go through, this is what women go through, then we can start addressing it and building together. Like, we're still at the place where so often like conversations like this will devolve into, no, why this is why men have it worse, no, this is why women have it worse. And I'm
Hmm.
glad that we didn't hear, but it's important to have that conversation. It's important sometimes to just stop and listen. You don't always have to try to get off or explain why you're hurting. Sometimes you just need to hear. Like, don't listen to respond, listen to take in. And if we all do that, we'll be better off.
Yeah,
That's
I
good.
agree. I call that the oppression Olympics.
Hmm.
Like, who has it worse? It's like there's always
Yeah,
this thing like who takes the gold this year, but really it's like, okay, the fact that we're all in the Olympics is the problem. You know what I'm saying?
exactly.
The fact
Mhm.
that we're all struggling is the issue.
Yeah, I agree. Any last takeaways for you, Simone?
Um, I guess just understanding the importance of valuing yourself in general in any type of circumstance when you're dealing with yourself and you're dealing with others. I think you can navigate life a lot differently when you know how worthy you are of respect and love
Mm-hmm.
and not settling. It's
Yeah.
just ingrained in our society for people who are unconventional to not speak up about their issues or speak up about their problems and to kind of take what they can get, and
Mm-hmm.
you have to be able to brush past what society has ingrained in you, unlearn that, and really take into account how important you.
Oh man.
Sorry, yeah, sorry. Can
You're
you hear
good.
me?
Yes, we can
Sorry,
hear
my
Yeah.
phone
you.
has just been wilding. I'm so sorry.
That was me
Just
yesterday
how
on IG
important.
Live.
It's so crazy, but yeah, just how important your being and who you are, your existence is, and to get people to understand that. And if they don't understand that, you don't have to deal with them.
Yeah, I agree, and that's the biggest thing. Is I really hope that women, and I'm women in general, would just take away from this time in quarantine is what you're gonna take with you after quarantine. You know, I need like women to just stand up for themselves and
Mm-hmm.
say, this is what I'm going to accept and this is what I'm not going to accept. And like
Mm-hmm.
Hay said, being willing to have a conversation without just trying to respond and get your point across, but actually understanding how can we move forward either together or how can we both be better when we go our separate ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so I appreciate both of you guys joining the podcast tonight. I really hope that we can do a part two of this conversation because I feel like we have so much that we can still go into. Like I said, next week we're actually going to be talking about gender roles. Do they exist and kind of like do they still exist and kind of how do you navigate them when dating or if you're married, how does it work in a married relationship? So that's it for this podcast. Thank y'all so much for tuning in on live. We're going to be back here on YouTube and Facebook tomorrow with the virtual pool party. So make sure you grab your cocktail, you grab your swimsuit, and join us here at 6 o'clock p.m. Thank you so much, Simone. Thank you so much, Haize, for joining the Thinness Does Not Equal Beauty podcast. And we hope y'all enjoyed the conversation. Make sure y'all leave us some comments. I'm definitely going to be checking, and I may even go live on Instagram later to read some of the comments. Thank y'all. Have a good night.